right. Hello, Internet, for the last time of 2023. This is Matt Orozco, and I am joined by.
Lowell Greenblatt. How are you?
Hey, we are here with another Macabre Monthly, the last one of the year, 2023, and a couple of logistical stuff for the three people that watch this regularly. You might have.
Hey, 5.
Oh, that's right. It's up to 5 now. We love those 5. I'll take single digits as much as any other digits. But you might have noticed a gap in November, and that's because I made the penultimate mistake that you can make in the vlogcasting, podcasting, YouTubing world, which is I deleted the file. So that's my bad. And yeah, I will live forever in shame.
It was a scintillating conversation about body horror.
I know, one of the best, but we will re-record it at some point, and spread all of that gooey love around. But yeah, since it is our end of the year episode, we are going to be doing our top 10 of 2023. We'll get to those a little bit later. But before we do, I'd love to ask, Lowell, how are you? What have you been watching? What have you been playing? What have you been thinking?
I'm good. I'm tired because it's the end of the year, and I'm ready for it to end. But
in the annual way.
Yeah. I'm like, all right, let's get to the end of December where we're all just trudging to Christmas and the week before New Year's, and
that week between New Year's and Christmas, the perennium of the calendar, where it's just like dangling there,
where anything goes.
Yeah.
Like you're at work, but you're not really at work, But as we were talking about before, I finished up playing Spider-Man 2, and I'm on to the God of War Ragnarok DLC. Still haven't played Alan Wake 2 yet, but I will get there. Did we talk about Thanksgiving last time? I don't think we did.
We didn't, because we recorded before Thanksgiving came out. So
not that it mattered. It was deleted, but it's rubbing salt in that wound. Totally.
I'll have to do 7, hail Satans or whatever they're called.
Whatever it is. Excuse me. So, before Thanksgiving, I just want to say I watched Exorcist Believer, and it was fine. It was fine.
Okay.
It wasn't great. It wasn't terrible. It was middle of the road, inoffensive, and it did a few things that I actually kind of liked, which seemed kind of like the opposite of what David Gordon Green was doing with his Halloween trilogy, which is interesting. I don't think he deserves so much of the hate that he gets for daring to do Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends. But yeah, have you seen it?
No, actually, I've got a copy on the mail to review. So as soon as I get it, I'm going to watch it. And okay. Apparently we're doing that now. I don't know what that is.
Wow.
That might be part of the new Apple thing that, like, if you put your thumbs up there we go. Fucking shit. Anyway, this is why I'm not on the AI. No, you can do I did this with my niece and nephew. Yeah, here we go. Here's the laser.
Out of here, seriously.
Yeah, it's. I mean, we don't need this in our lives. And yes, this is the most harmless form of, this is like machine learning or whatever. Anyway, I could go on all day about that. But you were saying Exorcist Believer on the way. As soon as I get it in, I will be watching it. I'm glad to hear you kind of found it to be fine, because I do think that the internet has a very hot cold reaction to anything. So there's no middle ground anymore. It's just love it or hate it. And so I think a lot of people end up in that camp. And I don't have the same vitriol for David Gordon Green that as other people do. But I also I also don't want to know why someone would want to subject themselves to all of this. I'd walk away from these franchise movies and go do something else.
Yeah, I mean, nobody wants this movie, but considering that it was going to be made, could have been a
It
lot
cost
worse.
$500 million.
Yeah, well, that's for the trilogy.
Yeah.
That's the rights, and I mean they're going to get their money's worth. But yeah, I'll see the second one. I'm kind of curious. I mean, I don't know. I think it's got a lot of the Exorcist baggage with it.
Yeah.
That there have been so many Exorcist movies, possession movies since The Exorcist, and none of them have. It's like the shark movies. No shark movie is Jaws.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'm just like, I don't know what everyone's so pissed off about. This is fine. Solid 3 stars. Put it in stone. And I saw Thanksgiving, like I know you did. And I mean, we can talk about this later when we get to our
I'm sure we
subject.
will.
But yeah, yeah,
Just a home
home
run.
run, home run. Um, yeah, what else? Oh, I saw It's a Wonderful Knife. I almost
Okay,
said
this
like,
is on my list.
okay, it was cute. It's not on my list, but I'm like, oh, I thought it kind of did it did the Black Christmas 2019 mistake a little bit, where it was like suddenly there's a new kind of magic towards the end in a movie that's basically It's a Wonderful Life but a slasher film. There was some stuff like some stuff with Justin Long's character where I'm like, wait, what are we doing? But that's just a nitpick, and I nitpicked a lot with movies this year, as I'm sure you'll also hear about later. But yeah, but it was a lot of fun, and it was all right.
When I say it was on my list, I mean it's on my list to watch. I have not seen it yet.
Okay.
Um, because I have been saving it. I'm so normally for Halloween, I will ask my wife to volunteer to watch horror movies. Because she's normally, she'll normally play along most of the time, but Halloween, this is my chance to show her whatever the good stuff, if you will. And this year I'm like, no, you know what? You pick the movie instead. I would rather take the rights to be able to do our new festival for the holiday season, which is the Holiday Horror-thon. So I will be subjecting my in-laws and her to a series of carefully selected holiday films, not all of which are horror, but I'm putting in some that I haven't seen, like It's a Wonderful Knife. I really want to give it a shot around the holiday season, even though we're close to it. I've got this idea in my head. I need to see it through.
Wait, hold on. I think I dropped something. Never mind. I'm back. Yeah, the not
And
to
we're back.
spoil anything. But speaking of the 2019 Black Christmas, which I don't think I'm ever going to bring up again, I watched what I call Black Xmas, which is 2006's Black Christmas remake, which is great, partially because it does not try to do what the original did at all. Like it's almost like the flip side of Rob Zombie's Halloween, where it takes like proper nouns, like the names of people and the setting of Christmas, and just does makes like a really fun, gooey slasher with it. It's just
Sleazy as fuck.
yeah, and just none of the baggage that you'd think would come with a movie like this. It's just you're not thinking
Some
about
people hate it though. I'm not one of those
yeah,
people, but I feel like oftentimes there's a lot of territorialism,
territoriality. Yeah, and I totally
territoriality.
get that. But once again, like every time someone says that movie sucks, I'm like, no, you're thinking of 2019's Black Christmas. Um, it's just a shame. Here I am making fun of that movie, but I kind of feel bad making fun of that movie
It
because it
never was
tried,
going to do
but it
well.
no,
Like it was
it
made
was
in,
just
it was like it was announced and released within 6 months, and
yeah, it was straight up, they had the name and that was it. So
and it came out in that weird time, like right before the world shut down.
yeah,
Like it had no, like it shouldn't have been. It's kind of like, I mean, in a way, it's not as good as the Child's Play remake, but it has a similar ill-begotten fate, which is like it doesn't really need to exist. It doesn't add enough to the canon to make it a worthwhile of anything else besides just slightly entertaining. But in the case of Black Christmas, it's actually not entertaining at all. Like it's really just poorly written.
Yeah.
But anyway, I agree with you with Black
Um,
Xmas. It is. I did rewatch that as well.
yeah, a lot of fun.
Can't show that to the in-laws.
The what?
I'm not going to show that one to the in-laws. I took that one before.
Oh yeah, no, don't you dare. But yeah, that's it for me as much as I can remember. What have you been watching?
Well, I definitely hit the Thanksgiving train pretty hard. I'm sure we'll talk about that later. I saw Godzilla -1, which I will talk about later. That is for sure on my list. And I'm trying to think what else I've been watching. A lot of documentaries on cults, like that Nexium cult. I don't know if
yeah,
I don't know if you
the
really call that
HBO
a
one.
cult. Yeah, the Valve thing.
Yeah, I loved the first season, but I wasn't really feeling much of the second. When they get to like the real time, like following the mother and all that, they kind of lost me a little bit. But I love like they're reflecting on it and like when it's like a look back, it's great. But when it's like a reality show, it's still good, but it's not as good for me anyway.
No, I think the story was far more compelling in the first season, but you do get people like the Nancy woman to talk, which is like really
Yeah.
interesting to hear her perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And you do build a lot of what I would consider empathy for her. Like I definitely was like, yeah, I could see how this, like, I could see how you got caught up in this. But yeah, I think with watching I watched that one. I also watched the other one, the Mother God or whatever it is, one that's also on Max,
Oh yeah.
and then the
I've
Twin
heard.
Flames one on Netflix, and like all this has led me to believe is that we are all ripe for cult picking at some point. It just is a matter of time, opportunity, and topic. Like if two of those three things converge at the right time, there's a really good chance you could end up in a cult. Because it preys on our most basic human need, which is to belong to something, to feel like we're a part of something. And I'd like to think at this point that hopefully with all the documentaries that exist, we can maybe at least point the signs, like be like, yeah, you seem kind of like a weird guru dude. I don't want to follow you anymore,
Yeah.
Stop giving stupid people money. But here I am saying this while people are giving people fake icons that turn into money on TikTok. So what the fuck do I know?
And possibly nominating Donald Trump for 2024. But that's a whole nother.
Yeah,
Not
we
gonna
live in a
go there.
society.
Not gonna. I cannot afford to go there mentally.
But I have been playing a lot of video games. Well, more than normal, which is not a lot because when you're an adult, you have other things to do. But Alan Wake 2 is hands down one of the best games, not just like of this year, but probably of the past 5.
Really?
It is. Did you play Control?
I did. I didn't finish it, but
It's fucking
I think
hard.
some more. I mean, there was one part where I'm like, I just kept running at it and running at it. Like maybe I needed another strategy, but it was fun up until then. Like when I played it, but I did play Alan Wake Remastered, and that was great. So I'm
Yeah.
excited for the second one.
No, it's truly like a cinematic experience. There's parts where I got goosebumps because it does feel like a movie. Um, it yeah, it's just the best horror survival. I mean, this is the new bar, I would say, for what horror survival games should be. Like it takes everything that like Resident Evil started, and even the original Alan Wake, was kind of unique in its own regard. But like it is just such an experience that it does all the things that Remedy does well. They makes you feel like you're actually in a strange world. Totally messes with your sense of perception, highly meta, very self-referential, especially if you've played the other games. It has plenty of Easter eggs and stuff for you to it's like one of those, like, I never got that, like, when finding an Easter egg never used to give me like a little sense of like, oh, I feel special now. But in these, they do, because there requires a lot of reading and extra time not playing the game. So anyway, I give my high praise for Alan Wake 2. I think any self-respecting horror fan who likes video games and has a PS5 or a PC should fucking play it. So yeah, that's what I've been up to. But how about 2023? So before we get into our top 10 list, overall, I would consider this one of the busier years in the genre. Certainly one of the more hyperbolic years in regards to what we might get, what we actually got, and then what we got that we didn't think we were going to get, or things that surprised the shit out of us. So if you had to give the year of 2023 a grade, a letter grade, A to F scale, what are you giving 2023 horror?
It's tough because 2022 was just A plus, 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 plus. And I mean, no year coming off one of the best years in horror so far is going to look good by comparison. So I'm going to be generous. And I'm going to say B minus.
Okay.
Overall. Not that it was a bad year. There's a lot of good stuff, as we're going to talk about. But like, I wonder if 2022 was just so front loaded because they didn't want, like, everyone was just post pandemic, let's just get it all out. Like, I wonder if some of the stuff from last year spilled, if it would have been released this year or spilled over, if it would have been like a more even share, because this year kind of feels like the hangover of last year.
Yeah, I see what you mean there. In some ways, I think I would give it I would give it a B plus. And the big reason is, though, because I think what we saw, I think there was a shifting dynamic in the genre that was less pronounced last year because of the studio, like how a lot of quality studio releases. Whereas this year you kind of had an opposite where some of the best movies were some of the ones that like didn't really get the biggest releases, or either were direct to streaming. Didn't we also see shortening shelf life at the theater. So in order for a movie to stick around, even more than 2 weeks these days, it's a pretty tough ask. And I think a lot of that is just, again, the way we consume media has changed.
Yeah.
So I think, it was a pretty good year. But I also think that when I was looking through the list of movies, and, again, haven't seen them all clearly, but of the ones I have, I'm like, I was a little worried if I wasn't going to be, but
But I'm still here.
hey, sorry about that. For some reason, were you saying
Yeah,
something?
no,
my AirPods
like,
got
I feel like
disconnected.
last year I could have done like a top 20 list, but this year I'm like, well, I guess I can put this one on, but and I'm satisfied with my list, but like, I wish there was more to it, but that's
Yeah.
fine.
No, I also think that there were some movies that like we'll talk about that probably some people maybe didn't see.
Yeah.
And like I think to some extent there's not any dead streams out there per se where it kind of was, just limited to Shudder and only, but
Yeah.
there was a lot of movies I think that ended up on my list that are ones that we reviewed for the site that I just don't think got enough, like weren't able to get a long enough release or exposure. So I do think that what will be interesting to kind of look at going forward with the genre in particular is how we start to shift maybe our attention away from theatrical into more streaming being the dominant. Because if I look at my list now, I'd say half these movies got a theatrical release. And of those half, like few of them, like half of those are limited, like only 2 or 3 are like wide release. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see, like, just again, if Shudder and services like that, as well as a Screenbox, continue to pump out more movies that people like, kind of bring people to away from the mainstream and into these more niche areas. But anyway, um, before we get into the best, what would you say is the your least favorite? I don't want to use the term worst because that implies some judgment, but your least favorite movie of the year.
Oh man, have I even? I don't know if I've even thought about that because some stuff just goes, you know, in and out. Uh, my God, I know I'm gonna have an answer for you later. I know, or I'm gonna wake up in the middle of the night and be like,
Screaming.
eh,
Just
but yeah, but off the top of my head, what's yours? Inspire me.
okay. It's Renfield. Um,
Uh,
I I
mm,
did not like I did not find it funny. I was like the best part about it was Nicolas Cage and vamping it up, but I
yeah.
just was very unimpressed with everything else about it. And
Mhm.
um I also just don't like I just don't like the whole Renfield's a superhero thing. So it just wasn't for me. But there are some movies I haven't seen, like I haven't seen Five Nights at Freddy's. So I don't
Oh
know.
yeah, no, that's thank you. Yeah, no, that would be mine. Um, real quick, Renfield, not great, but Nicolas Cage's Dracula is as awesome as you can imagine it would be.
That gets you
Um,
two
I,
stars. That's it.
I kind, and I mean, he earns them. Wow, oh
See what
wow,
Apple's doing to these things?
oh my god,
Wow.
hilarious.
Wish only we could do like if only we could set like horror ones. It'd be way better if we could just trigger it that way. So no hand signals of any kind. I'm gonna stop. I'm just sit on my
Okay,
fucking hands.
no gang signs, no live long and prosper. Well, it doesn't work for me, but yeah, no, Nicolas Cage's Dracula is great. I can't tell you what else happened in that movie off the top of my head. Five Nights at Freddy's, I feel like you had to have played and loved the games to know what the hell was going on. Because I mean, give me a horror movie about animatronics come to life. Like, how is Willy's Wonderland better than this? Did
And
you
I
see
did
what?
not. Yeah, and I did not like it at all.
Yeah, but it's
The
actually
Banana
better.
Splits movies is way better than that one.
Oh, that's what I've heard. I still have to see it, but like, how have we not managed to nail animatronic monsters coming to life and killing people in an abandoned Chuck E. Cheese? How like, I
Maybe
it just
Chopping Mall was the peak. Like it was the only and the greatest.
yeah, but there's still a way. So like somebody has to. But yeah, Five
There,
Nights at Freddy's. I'm just like, what? And the reveal at the end was really dumb. And I like I'm not gonna say who it was, but I really like that actor. Glad he's like back in horror, but it was just kind of like they're controlling them, and what the hell is happening? And then it was over, but there's like a sequel hint, and I'm like, I don't. I bet people loved it. I mean, it made a ton of money. People definitely saw it, but I'm like,
made a lot of money.
yeah, I'm like, not for me. It didn't do anything for me. So
That's fair.
yeah,
Yeah, not all movies are for all people, and
that's
that's
true.
okay. Someone out there liked it, so
Yeah.
well, $70 million worth of people liked it. That's I think that was the box office.
Yeah.
But anyway, all right, let's just start at our bottom with our number 10. So what's your number
Um,
10 movie of the year?
honestly, I didn't even really rank these because I was just
Okay.
kind of. I never when I always do my 10 favorites of the year, but I never rank them uh, for horror or non-horror. So I'll just start it off. I rewatched this last night. Actually, I forgot to mention because I wanted to see if it's still what I still thought about it so many months later. But I'm putting Scream 6 on here. I like Five Cream more, much more, but I still dug it. Wish there was more of a body count, but it was very effective. And the Scream movies are sort of like they're like the hot like in terms of mainstream slasher films, they are like the high watermark, you know? Like I know people would say Saw is like the main, the crown
The
of
most
like modern
recent.
horror. Yeah, I still think it. I mean, and good for them for entering into their 11th segment coming up. No slouch, but like Scream is just it's produced, it's slick. You know what you're getting. It's a good happy meal, and I got a good Scream movie. Still better than 3 and 4.
I like four
So
quite a bit.
I keep hoping to like it more. I mean, I've heard someone say that there are no bad Scream movies, and I I wouldn't necessarily argue that,
Yeah,
but like some are definitely way better than others.
but there's a
Um,
lot of like lower middle and upper bottom quality movies. Like there's
yes,
like Scream 1 and 2 are just downright
yeah,
classics. Everything
mhm.
else after that is like kind of jarbled in its own like
Catch as
mediocrity to
catch can.
slightly better. Yeah, like
Yeah,
but the first two are just, as the kids would say, goated. So, you
yeah,
know,
yeah. So I put that on there. Great gore, and it brought something back to the motive that I thought was missing from the past few entries, which I liked, which I won't spoil. But I've told it to you before. So, what is your 10?
so mine is one that didn't get a massive release, but did a review it for the site, and it's called Do Not Disturb. Um, it's kind of like Bones and All, but with a instead of like a kid, it's a dysfunctional couple doing ayahuasca. Or not, oh no, peyote,
Yeah.
sorry. Um, but it's actually like genuinely funny. For a kind of a lower budget film, it has really great gore gags, but also just technically really well made. It's nice and slick. It's like, I don't know, 75, 80 minutes, something like that.
Nice. Love.
Um, and and yeah, it's just a really kind of fun, insane, well acted movie about this couple that's in a hotel room and they're on the outs. They're getting on this getaway. They clearly have a history that's not great as far as things that has happened between them, which you learn throughout the course of the time together. But they come across a guy who hands them some unknown drugs, a ground score, and they just decide to take them. And it turns out to be peyote. And I this is the best. Like, if you've ever done hallucinogenic drugs before, this is probably the most accurate representation of what it feels like to be on them in this
Really
movie.
more than
Like,
Midsummer.
yes, in fact, it's more because it replicates the like the time blindness really, really well.
Oh wow.
So like
Okay.
Midsommar had like the visual, like kind of like, oh, the hazy view. Like this does that, but then adds in like the paranoia and the time blindness. Um, And again, it's just like in the two main actors in it are fucking great. Like they have complete just like insane turns as characters. Um, so
And the director is it? I'm just looking it up on.
John Ainsley,
Okay, I found it. Found it on Letterboxd. Added it to my watch list. Cool.
yeah, it's a solid little thriller. It's a lot of fun. The only thing it really kind of has, I think its weakest part is the ending, and not the like actual conclusion of like the biggest. It just kind of goes on a little longer than it needs to with something that really isn't necessary. But nevertheless, it does create a whole character arc. So I guess, take one out with the other. But either way, worth a watch. Do Not Disturb. I think you can find it. I know you can rent it right now on Vudu. It might show up on streaming services like for free any day now, though.
Cool.
All right, what's
Nice.
next up on your list?
My next one is an anthology, but maybe not one that you or many people would think of, but more people should see, and that's Satanic Hispanics.
Oh,
Uh,
yes.
have you seen it?
No, I have a copy coming in to review soon, so that's when I'm gonna watch it. I really
Cool.
want to see it though. Like I've been wanting to see
Mhm.
it since it came out. I just haven't, just didn't.
Yeah, I reviewed it for the site, and I spoke to Eduardo Sanchez, who directed one of the segments, and it's just great. I was a bit let down by this year's VHS film,
Mm.
but I hope they just keep churning those out year after year. I'll watch them. But this is Hispanic filmmakers making anthology films, like a Hispanic creep show, and some segments are better than others. I don't know if there's one that's necessarily bad, but every single one feels like it could have been expanded into a movie. Like, there are a lot of ideas in all of them, that it kind of makes you think that maybe these people wanted to make features out of these ideas but couldn't. So this was their opportunity to put it in an anthology. And it really just shows the strengths of all of the directors. Um, just great and varied in tone. Like there's an Evil Dead esque one. There's a From Dusk Till Dawn esque one. There's Damien Rugna, who did When Evil Lurks, which I'm sure we'll talk about. Has one that's almost like a math ghost story, and there's horror comedy, which is just a blast. Yeah, I would say big recommend uh, for everyone. Go see Satanic Hispanics. A lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that because I loved Isa Lopez's VHS segment. I thought hers was probably one of the most fun ones of this year's batch.
Which one in the new one was hers again?
It was like the Aztec like god one where they all go in that cave.
Oh no, that's Gigi Saul
Oh,
Guerrero.
Gigi, yeah, Gigi Salguero.
Yeah,
Sorry, yeah, Gigi
yeah,
Salguero. Yeah.
yeah.
I think I was thinking of Issa Lopez because of the True Detective new season,
Tigers are not afraid. Oh yeah, can't wait for
which
that.
looks fucking amazing. Uh,
Yeah,
but anyway, yeah, I'm excited to see that, and I'll be reviewing the Blu-ray on the site once it gets in.
I
Um,
didn't know you were getting the Blu-ray. If you don't want to hold on to it, I will gladly take it off your hands. But if you
Noted.
love it, I think you will. Then hold it. But anyway,
Well, the next one on my list is one that I almost forgot about myself until I was like kind of looking at the movies I've watched this year, and it's Unwelcome. This was a
oh
Shutter,
yeah,
yeah,
mm-hmm.
the red hats,
Red Caps. Yep,
red
yep.
caps, yeah. What a wild little fucking movie. It comes out of nowhere. It's got a good sense of humor that's well balanced with some really good gore and a lot of fun practical effects. It's just the zaniest fucking. It's like Gremlins, but an R-rated Gremlins, basically, with a little more mythology. And I guess as you told me, I think after I watched it, that the red caps are a real thing. It's all based
Yeah.
in actual myth and mythology. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's also really nasty. It's really kind of tight too. Again, it's another 90-minuter. So Shudder's
Mm-hmm.
pretty good at maintaining that sweet spot. But yeah, I think more people. I think this came out around like mid-year, maybe the kind of the second quarter of the year or something like that. So I feel like it might have just got swept up in other bigger releases. Um, but if you didn't get a chance to see it, Unwelcome is a blast, and I think it's still on Shutter.
Yeah, I think so. Sure is. Didn't make my list, but I enjoyed it a lot. My next one, this might be a little controversial, but I liked it so much more than I thought I would. And the pros far outweigh the cons for this one, even though the cons are pretty apparent. It is totally killer. And it feels like someone I someone on Shockwave said the Final Girls, which came out a few years ago,
Mm-hmm.
was more like a comedy about horror than a horror movie, and I feel like this was like that too. You know, it's like the slasher version of Back to the Future, which is interesting. I mean, I also don't know how I feel about so many of these high concept, like It's a Wonderful Life, but a slasher, Groundhog Day, but a slasher. Though I love the
Freaky
Happy Death Day.
Friday, but a
Yeah, like
slasher.
that. Yeah, and I mean, we're doing so far so good with those. Like, I would say there hasn't been a bad one yet, but I feel like there's a bad one coming. Um, I don't know, prove me wrong, but the script was just really creative, and it's done stuff. It does stuff in time travel movies that I haven't seen in time travel movies before, which are legitimately hilarious. like the end, the return, as it were. It was like, that's just gold. Um, there are, of course, a lot of like, she's from now, but she's in the 80s, and oh, things are different. And half of those jokes are her trying to be like, that's problematic and using today's language. And like, that's kind of an eye roll. But the really funny shit is the fact that like you can just walk into a school in the 80s, you can just get information from like wherever you want, like how people are doing cocaine in public, like no one cares. That's all funny. But as a slasher, it's fine. But as a time travel film, really inventive stuff with the Mandela effect was really cool. Mandela, whatever it is. And by the end, I was like, yeah, actually, this is pretty impressive. It's got kind of a sitcom sheen to it, which
Yes.
you can take or leave. But overall, big recommend. So it makes the list.
Yeah, I feel like it's just a matter of time before they just do the wrong pairing of that mashup. Like they're gonna do like
Mm.
Porky's but make it a slasher. It's like I'm not sure if that's
So
gonna
a
work.
slasher. So
Yeah,
basically a slasher. Yeah.
yeah. I guess it is just a slasher movie.
Yeah.
Um,
Or
but
Cherry Falls.
yeah. I mean, this one didn't end up on my list, but and again, I don't think I liked it as much as you, but there was some things that did work for me. I think The Mask is pretty good. I think that works. I think what I do like about the modern slashers is really that they are, in a way, kind of paying homage to Scream in the best possible way by making fun of themselves and kind of
Mm-hmm.
like doubling down on not just the absurdity of some of the situations, but then actually doing the logical thing that you don't expect to happen. So I think in some extent, the smarter a slasher gets, the better it's going to get. And maybe we're on the horizon for our next great slasher movie. But
Yeah.
next one on my list is The Blackening.
Oh, that almost made my list. That was really close.
It
But
was so good. Like,
yeah.
it's not perfect. Like the plot in general is not it's not the world's best plot, but it does so much with what like with the tone and the theme of just like let's make an all black slasher movie, um, and go to town with it. And it's funny. It's got some pretty good kills.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of creepy. It's like The Mask is a little creepy, but it is fucking hilarious and it has a very satisfying ending. So yeah, I had a good time with this. In fact, I had totally forgotten about it, and then while we were unpacking, it was one of those things like, oh, scrolling through, I think it was Stars or something like that. Like, oh, let's fucking watch this. And
Mm-hmm.
next thing I know, like nothing's unpacked. I'm sitting there just watching it. Totally engrossed, laughing my ass off, had a blast. And again, it's like a 90-minute, so
Mm-hmm.
real quick and easy to sit through.
Nice. Uh, yeah, I kind of thought of it more as a comedy than a horror film. I think maybe that's why I took it off, but it does absolutely count as a horror film. Um, Next is, this would definitely be in my top five because I legitimately love this, is Where the Devil Roams, the new film from the Addams family who brought us Hellbender and The Deeper You Dig. And I was lucky enough to speak with them again for this one, for the site, like it did for Hellbender. And it's just like low budget filmmaking at its finest. Like you can tell that these are people just like putting on a show, doing what they can with what they've got, and it's fantastic. It's a period piece, also. Like it's set during like a Depression era carnival, like in the 30s, and it's just uh, dark and sad but majestic. Well, it's not entirely sad. It kind of, I really liked it.
It
I
dabbles in the
would,
sad.
yeah, yeah, but it's just, it's about being a family in the face of adversity, and killing people, and you know, the
Good family bonding activity.
yeah, and I don't want to give too much away, but yeah, the last shot of the movie is one that'll just stick with you, like for a long time. And it is sort of reminiscent of the ending of another famous horror film, but it only when you think back on it. Like, I don't want to ruin it, but it's just very evocative, very German expressionism, very good. Where the Devil Roams.
Is it on Shudder, or is it?
No, it was in theaters a little bit, but I think it's going to be on Tubi soon. Which should break the streak of there not being any decent Tubi originals, because I haven't found many Tubi originals that were that great, but this is, I think, probably the first great one. So I mean, it's Tubi. You don't pay for it. Watch it.
Yeah, I mean, Tubi is though the genre fans' best friend because it has like an absurd amount of movies that most streaming service. It's like what Amazon Prime used to be. Used to be the Wild
Yeah.
West of streaming services. All right.
Yeah.
What's next? So my next one is Talk to Me.
Hold on. Did my picture freeze? Because your picture froze. But since you're, oh wait, no, it's better. Okay, never mind. Talk
Yeah,
to
it was frozen. It was frozen for a second.
Okay.
But
Also,
my next one is
okay, but go ahead.
my next one is Talk to Me. And I actually thought I was going to have this higher on my list, but the more I thought about this movie after it ended, the less I liked it. But I still liked it quite a bit, and I do think that its approach to the possession kind of ghost genre was pretty interesting. I also think the characterization of like Gen Z and how they would approach a situation like this was kind of funny. I don't know how accurate or kind of realistic it might be, but we have people that you know fucking drink Tide Pods or eat Tide Pods and shit. So I don't really know what people are capable of anymore. But visually, a really kind of interesting movie as well. Really well directed. Story is not the story is its weakest link. Really, it just there's parts of it, and some of the characters do things that really feel very uncharacteristic of the way they're of just what they're doing. But I also just again I can't hold too much fault against that because there's so much about it that does work. There's some genuinely good scares. There's a lot of really good tension. There's some scenes that really kind of shock you a little bit. So I had a fun time with it. I'm actually meaning to rewatch it again just to kind of see if I like it more or still kind of feel the same about it. But still, considering all the amount of movies we got this year, I still think the one was pretty impressive.
Yeah, and what you said about how you don't want to hold too much against it because so many of it does work, that is basically my review of this film and a lot of the movies on this list. There are flaws, but like what it does in spite of those flaws is actually pretty impressive. I mean, where the scene where the main character gets possessed for the first time, and when it ends and she's like, that was awesome, I was like, holy shit, this is going to be an amazing ride.
And that
it doesn't,
montage that follows afterwards, right? Like it's just
yeah,
what the fuck.
and it doesn't quite live up to that. And I mean, I know it's like a plot thing, but like if you discovered that you could like raise spirits from the dead, you're just gonna turn it into like a TikTok game. Like I was just like, I'm like, okay, I'm going with it. I'll watch sequels to this. I just feel like this wasn't the best possible idea for the execution for this idea. Like you said, very well directed. Makeup effects are incredible. Some of the scenes are really shocking. And there was something like towards the end, I wasn't sure about something like not quite the very end, but like the climax. I was like, wait, what happened here? Because they don't really clarify it, but I've read that, oh, this is what happens and it makes a lot more sense. So it seems more intelligent. But don't make me go online to try and find out what happened, only to find other people being like, yeah, what did happen? And then you get an explanation. Um, but anyway, all this to say, yes, it's on my list too, but not a perfect movie. I won it at trivia and a few weeks ago, and I haven't watched it again. I meant to, but You know, I just want to see what these guys do next, which might be the sequel to this. But yeah,
I don't think this needs a sequel, to be quite honest. Like, and I know that it's already getting one, so my opinion doesn't matter, fuck all. But still, um, I think sometimes movies should just exist, kind of as singular entities and not much more. And I think in that way that makes them there, that there's a sense of there's a power in that of just being like, I'm so confident in this one idea and I don't need to do it again. Like, I'm done with it. I'm over with it. John Carpenter had that kind of fortitude.
yeah.
But anyway, well, what's next on your list since we've got Talk to Me off?
Next, I have Infinity Pool from Brandon Cronenberg. I still think his best film so far is Possessor. And I didn't quite know what to expect from this, but I thought it was great. I mean, he is becoming the next Cronenberg, and I don't know if
I mean, his
that's by
father.
or uh, just coincidence, but yeah, he is his father's son in the best ways. I will watch anything that he does. I still haven't seen Antiviral though, his first film,
It's good.
and I want to, but just another great Mia Goth performance, and just a really, it kind of feels like it could have been a Black Mirror episode, but I'm glad that it's not. I'm glad it gets the feature treatment. Um, but yeah, just really, really weird but accessible, and the kind of movie where as you're watching it you're thinking like, what would you do, what are the implications of all these things happening, so you're never distracted, never bored. You're all, it's brain food, and I dig it. Did you see it?
I did, and I need to rewatch it because I just, for some reason, well, one, it was like one of those situations where I, for some reason, had to keep stopping it. Like I kept getting interrupted, and I don't think that helped any. But also, I just feel like I kept missing something. Like I'm like, wait, what the fuck is going on now? Like what is happening here? Like I felt like I just wasn't maybe paying enough attention when I was watching it. So I'd like to give it another shot because I genuinely was kind of pretty left cold by it. Just like, this is fine. But I also feel like I just didn't get enough out of it to really have a good opinion on it because again, I was just the way I was watching it. So it's on my list to give a rewatch before I kind of give a because you're one of many people that's kind of told me how much they love this movie this year. Um,
not
so
not one of my well, yeah, one of my favorites because it's on the list, maybe not in the top five, but yeah, it's definitely, it's doing something, and I'm liking it.
I definitely remember a lot of just the. I mean, it had definitely passes the weird vibes check.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty early on, but all right. Next one on my list is Hell House LLC Origins, the Carmichael Manor.
I
Uh,
just watched the first Hell House,
what'd you think?
and eh, not for me. Some great parts, but like, I kind of don't really know. I don't get the big deal. If you like it, that's great, but I don't understand how there are like three sequels to it, or two sequels and a prequel.
I've
But
only seen the first one and this one. I haven't seen the
okay,
sequel, but I just because I'm not a big found footage guy.
yeah.
And I did enjoy the original Hell House quite a bit as far as a found footage film goes. Because I think it does a lot of things that other film footage films at the time weren't doing, which was like making them a little more violent and a little more in your face.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
I actually I wasn't super excited about this one. Like it wasn't something I was looking forward to. So I kind of went into it with relatively low expectations. But yeah, I dug it quite a bit. I actually think it's one of the few situations where while the found footage elements do work, it actually would have worked better if they were just it was just a straight up film. Um, but there's some genuinely good creepy moments. I fucking hate clowns, so there's
Mm,
two bright-eyed, bushy-tailed fucks in there. So
of course.
but yeah, there's some pretty good, like I think the tension builds nicely. Um, as far and again, I say as far as found footage goes, like I'm damning it with fake praise, but like, if you don't like found footage, this isn't going to change your mind. But the same time, it is a better example of the genre and kind of where it's come to, even if the storytelling is a little fucking weird.
Cool. My next one is one that I think we all forgot about. And I wasn't sure it was going to make my top 10 list, but when I thought back on the movies I watched this year, I'm like, yeah, that's definitely in there. And that's Sick.
I was thinking of this wasn't going to make my list, but it definitely, like, I had to think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's one of those, but it's co-written by Kevin Williamson. Like, this is kind of the return of Kevin Williamson to slasher horror, and no one's really talking about it. But
Is
okay,
that
but
because it is very much a Kevin Williamson script? Like, it's
not quite. Although it's funny because it shares a lot of parallels with Screen Six that I don't know. I don't know if
a lot.
yeah, yeah. Which is I'm like, is Kevin Williamson still talking to Radio Silence, or do they just have a writer's room for both of the films? I don't know. But no, they're not credited on this at all. But yeah, it's lean. It's a lean, mean slasher, and it's basically a chase film in the wilderness. And I don't think we have seen many modern American wilderness slashers in a long time. But yeah, I mean, I think it's short too, like 80 something minutes. It has one job and it does it. And it's actually very impressive. Very well directed by John Hyams. Yeah, Sick. Totally worth it for getting Peacock.
It is far better than most movies like it. But for
Yeah.
whatever reason, I
Oh
was
yeah.
also like the whole time I was like, I know exactly where this is going. Like, like
Oh, I did. I felt that way with Talk to Me, kind of, but at least in parts. But not quite with this.
um, but it was like, as far as like pandemic horror movies go, it's one of the better ones. It also has a great opening. I think the opening of the movie is pretty strong.
Yeah.
Um, which again has a lot in common with Scream Six. So cool. All right. Next up on my list is The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster. Have you seen this one?
This one almost made it. And honestly, I do kind of want to revisit it. So who knows? Maybe next time we talk, I'll be like, yeah, this should have made my list. But yeah, just really, I was impressed by it, and it does. I feel like it'd be a. Did you see Birth? I'm going off on a tangent. Did you see Birth, Rebirth?
No, no.
Okay, I think they would make a great double feature because both of their endings do something kind of similar, which make the films very very memorable. Birth, Rebirth is on Shudder right now. It's almost like the adult version of this. Not that this is a kids movie, but yeah, all that is to say, I really like this one.
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty interesting and novel take on obviously the Frankenstein genre, but also bringing in a lot of the cultural and societal elements to really make it more of a um, yeah, just more resonate with what's happening today. It's a far more depressing and like sad movie than I thought it was going to be, like, because some of the stuff that happens is just downright fucking awful. Especially again, being a U.S. citizen is yeah, just a lot of parallels to what it is a lot of highlights all the shitty parts of our society, but also it's got some really good
Yep.
horror beats. It's got some really solid gore. And it just kind of flew under the radar. Actually, again, this is one of those ones I was just kind of scrolling through and like, oh, okay, this looks interesting. Put it on, and I had a blast with it. And again, not too long, doesn't overstay its welcome. Has a very gratifying conclusion. Like, it's again, not every horror movies aren't very good always at sticking the landing. I think this is a one that definitely earns a solid ending out of it.
I don't know if it's a happy ending.
It's not. It's not at all.
I think it might think it is, but I don't know. But we'll
It's like the ending of Pan's Labyrinth. It's like a bittersweet and sad, but still like, but oh, they're in a better place, but they're dead. Like that's the ending of Pan's Labyrinth is she's dead.
It's well, sort of. see Birth Rebirth, and then we'll talk about both of these.
Okay.
But yeah.
All right. What's next on your list?
I'm just thinking I have to rewatch that. Next on my list is The Outwaters, which I reviewed for the site and spoke with Robbie Banfitch, the director, for. Have you seen it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Skin of a Rink and go fuck yourself, I think, is the way that I describe this to people, because whenever everyone's flipping out about Skin of a Rink, which
Awful. That's the worst movie this year. I take it back. That is the worst movie.
But if it just wasn't a movie, if it was just something I found on YouTube, it would be maybe the scariest thing I've seen this year. But it is not a movie, and it is certainly not a 100-minute movie. The Outwaters I think, deserves all the praise that Skinamarink gets. It is a little too long. It is very top heavy, but when the horror hits, it's just nonstop. I don't know how you merge cosmic horror and found footage, but he did it, and it's just a nonstop descent.
It's a trip. It's like the ending of 2001: A Space Odyssey. It's like it has that level of taking you out of the cinema, of the movie experience, and just like putting you in like a what the fuck. And it's primal. It's just it's the only thing I think the reason this didn't end up my list is largely just because of how, like, it's not something I really want to go back to anytime soon.
Yeah, no, I get
it. It's an aggressive watch, but you are 100% correct that it deserves all the praise that Skinamarink got and then some.
Yeah, it's just too bad they cut out that one line. Hey, I hear the Event Horizon is launching today. I think we can see it from here. Really wish they kept that in. But yeah, what an experience. What about you?
Right. Next up on my list, I think we're getting into the
I got two left.
The few left. So next one on my list is Thanksgiving.
Yep, mine too.
This movie fucking slaps. It is it's better than I thought it was going to be. Mm-hmm. It even though it didn't retain the like grindhouse feel of the trailer, which I thought would have been like the cherry on the cake, but it's still, it didn't feel deficit without that. It felt, in fact, in some ways, it probably gives a little bit more credibility by not relying on that gimmick. Because I think one of the problems that Machete has is that, like, it is a gimmick, and the movie itself is not that great, but it's entertaining enough. But anyway, this is a better trailer come movie than that. This is just a fun slasher movie. It's basically a 90s slasher movie,
and an 80s slasher movie.
It is very predictable. Like, I think I didn't fully call the plot, the emotional plot twist, if you will, but like, it's pretty clear to me who the killer was from the get-go.
No. Yeah.
But it's also like, but I think even in like slash movies, you already know the killers most of the time anyway. So I think that what it does well is it doesn't rely on the mystery to keep you engaged with the movie. Like, yes, you are wondering who's doing this, and yes, it has a good mystery in it, but it's also the kind of thing where just because you know the mystery doesn't mean that you now kind of, the movie's, it's not a one and done. There's a lot of reasons to go back to this. It's got good dialogue. It's got some really great cameos. And I swear Eli Roth must have made everyone sign in a part of their contract that they all had to do like their best Massachusetts accent, because people are really putting on a fucking show with like the accents they're throwing out there. But it hits, like, between this and, like, now we have this and then Black Friday. It's just a great double feature. Like, now we have that part of the year covered by two movies that share a very similar tone. Thanksgiving also wasn't 2 hours. That's a huge plus.
Yeah. If nothing else, 2023 was the year of slashers, and I love me some slashers. And I mean, Eli Roth was born to make this movie. This is his magnum opus. And I've liked some Eli Roth movies. Some haven't really been for me, but I kept thinking someday he's going to make one that I absolutely love. Like he just has to. I feel this way about Joe Bagos too. Like he hasn't made one that I love, but like I know he's got it in him to make. He's going to make one of my favorite movies in the world someday. He just hasn't yet. But Eli Roth has done it with this. Eli Roth has made a slasher film the way that only he could. I didn't quite know who the killer was, but I love that it's a script that he's wanted to make forever, and he just did it, and it's great. It works as a slasher, and
It works well as a slasher.
yeah. And he said in interviews that like this is sort of like if the Grindhouse trailer was a trailer for the 80s movies, this movie is a remake of that movie. And I know it got greenlit for a sequel, which I'm excited for, but I want to see a demake of this movie. I want to see him making the original 1982 Thanksgiving that was promised by the Grindhouse trailer. I want to see what that movie is going to be, which will never happen, but I think it's like a great idea. He can have it for free. But yeah, incredible kills, incredible gore. It sags a little bit at the ending, but that's fine because we ate so good the rest of the time. And just yeah, can't wait for that 4K.
Yeah,
Love it.
it's an instant buy. And I never thought about the idea of the demake, but I fully support it. I was not super excited to hear about a sequel because I do think that this like there's
It
just
doesn't need it at
doesn't need
all.
it.
But
Like it's
also,
perfect as it is.
yeah.
And let's go fuck up another holiday instead. Let's do Easter. Let someone do. I mean, if you've ever seen the holiday anthology where they do the Easter story, it's a
Just
pretty.
zombie Jesus. Just you know, let's just do it.
He has risen and he is hungry. All right. So Thanksgiving we talked about. All right. So next one up on mine is
Is your number one, I guess, or number two?
I've got three left.
Oh, okay. I got
Somehow.
one. You can do, yeah.
All right. So Malum is the next one on my list. Genuinely love this movie. Watched it a couple of times. Saw it with a crowd. Saw it by myself. Loved it both times. The Last Shift didn't need a remake, but I also don't really see this as much of a remake as kind of like it exists within the same universe, just the same, same thing happening in a different place kind of thing. There's some truly amazing visual effects. In particular, the people that were behind the Hellraiser makeup for the Hulu reboot did the effects for the creatures in Malum. Yeah, huge fan, love it to bits. And you said you have one left?
Yeah.
All right,
And
go for yours. I think I know what
Mount
it is.
well, it's not my number one. It's just one left. But I will say Malum, amazing creature effects, great performance by Jessica Sula, and a creepy ass Clark Wolf. I'd love to see her in more horror. But didn't really do it for me. I like Last
Yeah.
Ship didn't really need a remake, and it's basically the same movie. Like if you're gonna remake it, actually, I think you should do something with it. But unless I'm wrong and I'm misremembering it, it was pretty much the same movie, and it just came out kind of limp, except for those effects. But the last one I have on my list was one that I went back and forth with a lot. Is When Evil Lurks. It made it, but
Why wouldn't it? That's a better question.
because it felt like they just ran out of money at the end, which is kind of mean. I know, but I feel like so much of this movie fucking rules. There's a sequence in this movie that's like kind of just before the midpoint that is one of the best sequences of the year, maybe even within the few years.
Is it
The
the
past,
attack?
yes, but and I
Yes.
tell you from when it starts to when it ends, I'm just like, holy hell.
Oh, and then
Um,
what happens after that? The woman walking along the side of the road.
Yeah, yeah,
fucking chilling.
yeah. But just it felt like this. I don't know if it went on a little bit too long. Like it could. I found a point where it could have just ended, even if it left some plot holes. But in trying to wrap things up in the end, it just kind of did it very unsatisfactory for me. Where it's just like, oh, that was who did that, and oh, that's where she is. Oh, okay, the end. The aristocrats, which sounds like I'm complaining about a film that I have on one of my favorite horror films of the year. But I thought about it, and one of my favorite horror films of all time, you know me, is Nightmare on Elm Street. The ending of Nightmare on Elm Street kind of sucks. It does. It just does. Like it's a total compromise on Wes Craven's part. But the rest of it is so good that it's in the pantheon. And that's how I feel with this. And I do think this ending is actually better than Nightmare on Elm Street's. I don't think the film is as good as Nightmare on Elm Street, but there's so much here that can't be discredited, that needs to be lauded, and there's so much in here that is so freaking good that it deserves to be on the list. And I need to rewatch it again so that maybe I can reconcile my those little mixed feelings I have, but they don't permeate the whole thing. They're just at the end.
So I watched this twice in the same weekend, which is that never happens. um, and it's partly because I showed my wife the Blair Witch Project in October, and she's like, "Oh, it was kind of lame. Not as good. It's not as scary as I thought it was going to be." I'm like, "Yeah, you kind of to be there. It's one of those movies." But let's
Yeah,
watch this movie When Evil Lurks, because this is gonna fucking scare the shit out of you. And sure enough, did just that. But it is, um, there's parts in this movie that you'll never forget. It
yeah,
is so dark and it is so grim, like in every regard. And that's why I actually love the ending, is because it pretty much is, the ending is so genuine to the entire tone of the movie that even though it's
and
really, really
make it
down.
better. Like I'm not mad about what happened. I'm just with like I just wish I wasn't like I wish I was like wait what instead of wait what you
I mean,
know
it is
like
kind of a, it doesn't end with a bang as much as it does with a whimper. But
yeah
I think that that whimper is like, if you think about what's happening in it, it's so fucking dark that you're just like, oh, like it's almost like it's like there's no hope at that point. And so it's like whatever happens, it's like there's nothing that's going to be worse than the end of the world, right? Like that's pretty much
yeah
what we're looking at
which is
here.
kind of where I wish they ended it like that even without wrapping things up because there are still some unanswered questions at that point. I wish they just left those questions unanswered as opposed to answering them not so great but that's my thing but
Yeah.
that's fine. Yeah, that's because it's like the global awful and it's the personal awful at the end, which I respect.
I mean, I think that the one thing this movie does well is once it starts, like the first 15 minutes is all set up. Then once it starts, it just doesn't let go of you. There
No,
are some there, it lets you breathe a little bit, but it doesn't let go, because as soon as you've got a second to catch your breath, it fucking grabs you right again. And the only thing that I would say about this is that it redefined a very stale genre, which is possession.
oh
Um,
yeah,
it
yeah,
made possession scary again. It made it has ideas in here that I think I wouldn't be surprised if people will be ripping off.
oh
I think the visual
we're getting
effects.
a remake of this like
Oh, but
we
it's
have.
not. There's no way it's going to be as good, because the thing is,
Oh
like,
no, of course.
sometimes, like, even if like all the money in the world, sometimes it's the right people making the right movie at the right time. And that's what this movie is. It's like everything hitting on. And I think this is Damien's best film, but Terrified is also an amazing movie. So I think he's, so far, what is he, two for two? Or is he two feature films or
Yeah,
three?
two full length and the anthology segment, but yeah, two features. Yeah, he's two for two.
He's two for two. And like he objectively is a better filmmaker this time around, just by the way he's telling the story. It's a far more it's not as there's far more plot holes in Terrified and the way he tells a story is a little disjointed. But in this case, it's a very straight, direct tale. But the the makeup effects in this are just disgusting.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
yeah, it's a movie that, like, to me it's an instant classic. It's an instant classic in that I will want to watch this again. It's a movie I want to show people who haven't seen it just so I can see their reaction watching it. And it's a movie that like people will talk about as far as movies that did something genuinely different.
yeah.
That pushed the genre, like something again like Possession, and thought about it in a totally different way. So it's almost like, if you've seen the 30 Coins show on HBO,
No, I've been curious about that. It's
it's got a
good?
similar, yeah, it's really, I've only seen the first season. I need to watch the second, but remember Agnes and I watched the first season when it came back in the pandemic, because it came out like right when the pandemic shut everything down. And so I was
Uh,
like, oh, let's fucking binge the fuck out of this. And it was great. But it has a very similar kind of approaches to things like religion and possession, and that they're new ideas, they're different, and they're fun. But my best movie of the year is Godzilla Minus Zero, because
yeah.
have you seen it?
No. Um, I I'm not a big kaiju guy. I like Godzilla King of the Monsters, and I kind of like that first new Godzilla. But it's not in my DNA. I can take him or leave him. I will see that new Godzilla versus Kong when it comes on Max, but I'm not kind of to rushing out to it. But I hear if you love Godzilla, this is like the best Godzilla movie ever, and I'm
I
really
don't even
curious.
know if you have to love Godzilla, because it is. I mean, I will. My opinion on this is it's the best Godzilla movie since the 1954 original, and the reason why it's the best is because it is not so much a remake as it is kind of like a retelling of that story, but with far more layered nuance of like of just of sub. There's just far more subtext. Like, whereas the first movie, the original film, was all about Godzilla being a metaphor for the nuclear fallout that
Right.
was, going across Japan and causing havoc in perpetuity because of the U.S. dropping bombs. Then this is like taking that same thing, but then applying other themes to that, right? It still has that element of like, we are now living under like a perpetual danger created by something that we didn't ask for, but it goes into the topics of survivor's guilt. It goes into duty to country versus like logic. It has, the characters in this are so well developed and rich, and they're not like your stereotypical like Godzilla characters where they're almost just fodder for Godzilla. In fact, in this case, it equally balances the human elements and the Godzilla elements. In fact, and the best thing it does is it makes Godzilla fucking terrifying again. The first 5 minutes of this movie are as tense as the T-Rex scene in Jurassic Park when the fence goes down. It's that fucking wild, and I can't say enough good things about it, because like it's still under 2 hours, like just barely under 2 hours, and it jam packs so much character, story, heart, and just action. Like, it's not it. There's no part of it that's boring. It flies right by. I saw it in IMAX, so it was the best theater going experience I've had in the past 5 years. It's just a tremendous movie, and even if you're not a Godzilla fan, if you it's like Jaws level, as far as I would say. It doesn't it's that applicable to, like, it's that broad as far as its reach could go, because it doesn't necessarily rely on Godzilla being the driving force of the story. And that's kind of been the problem with the American versions, is like they don't know how to handle the characters. Like, they don't know if they want to be a monster movie, they want to be a monster movie with humans in it.
Yeah.
And like, you can make a monster movie that has a human story, but you just have to be really thoughtful about what story you're trying to tell, instead of just monsters fighting is never going to be a metaphor for anything. You have to make that metaphor, and I think that's why setting it in World War II, and the same time period more or less that the original Godzilla took place. It's just so good, and I did not think it was going to be that good. I thought the hype actually was just going to be more just a bunch of, because I like Godzilla movies, but they are not my favorite movies. They're top 3, top 5 franchise, but like they're not. Um,
your main.
Yeah, they're not my go-to, but it is very well deserving of all the hype and praise it's getting. So
Cool.
yeah.
You have to do that.
So yeah, that's the best of 2023. Real quick before we wrap this one up, what movie are you looking forward to most in 2024?
Maxine.
Same.
Yeah.
There's no contest. I do feel that I'm a bit what is it, bullish on 2024.
Yeah. I mean, the hype that I'm generating myself for Maxine is already like too much. Like I don't know if it can live up to it because it's the third in this trilogy, and I have no idea what it's going to be. So
I really wish I hadn't have seen the like headline I saw. I think it's making the rounds the past couple days that it's very much an Argento giallo, gory 80s.
But is that from people who know what giallo is, or is it just like people who say it's really gory? Because if it's really gory, that's great. But I think I read someone's comment online, like a film critic who said like someone who was in horror said like when something's described as giallo, I think there's only like 4 or 5 people like in the mainstream press who really know what that means and can really use that effectively. So I'll hold off. But if that's what it is, if it's Ty West doing a giallo, cool.
I mean, if that's what was my big bugaboo with Malignant, and people saying that it's James Wan's tribute to 90s Argento, I'm like, no, it's fucking not. Like this is basket case meets slasher movie. That's it.
Yeah, with black gloves. Like that's
with black gloves. Well, that's a wrap on 2023 in this episode. Yeah, make sure you go check out macabredaily.com for all the good shit. Check us out on Instagram, Macabre Daily. Find me, Macabre Matty, on Instagram. Find Lowell School.
At Lowell School, that's right.
And hope everyone has a safe, happy holidays, however you choose to celebrate, and a kick-ass new year. Watch, as we say all the time, be good, stay safe, and above all, watch them horror movies. Adios.
Watch them horror. Peace.